Tom Swarbrick on LBC. Listen on your smart speaker. Just say, play LBC.
10 to 6, Friday evening. Tom Swarbrick here on LBC. It means, as you know, one thing. Everybody's blood pressure can just go back to normal because there is absolutely nothing that is contentious or worrying contained in Simon Mark's American Week.
Tom, even by local standards, events here are moving at an unprecedented clip. So before we get into this week's shenanigans, I ran out of time last week to mention that the Trump administration had withdrawn America from 66 separate international organizations, and not small, inconsequential ones. Outfits like the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the Global Counterterrorism Forum, and the Partnership for Atlantic Cooperation, all of them deemed by the White House to be wasteful, woke and ineffective. Of course, that last one, the Partnership for Atlantic Cooperation, should probably have seen the writing on the wall.
We're not going to have Russia or China occupy Greenland, and that's what they're going to do if we don't. So we're going to be doing something with Greenland, either the nice way or the more difficult way.
The president speaking last Friday afternoon, and as he's done all this week, stoking the notion that he is prepared to use force to seize Greenland unless the Danes agree to sell it or just hand it over. Denmark insists he is simply lying every time he makes these claims.
If you take a look outside of Greenland right now, there are Russian destroyers, there are Chinese destroyers and bigger. There are Russian submarines all over the place. But we're not going to have Russia or China as a neighbor.
The Danish authorities reiterated this week that it is flatly untrue to claim the waters off Greenland are littered with Russian and Chinese military vessels. Denmark's foreign minister said they haven't seen any Chinese presence there for a decade. But when Lars Løkke Rasmussen exited from a tense and difficult hour-long conversation with Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio at the White House, he said both Denmark and Greenland fear that Trump is now serious about sending his gunboats in.
We didn't manage to change the American position. It's clear that the president has this wish of conquering over Greenland. We made it very, very clear that this is not in the interest of the kingdom.
Flanking him and also fearing the possibility of being conquered by the Americans, Greenland's Foreign Minister Vivian Motzfeldt.
I think it's very important to say it again, that how important it is from our side to strengthen our cooperation with the United States, but that doesn't mean that we want to be owned by the United States.
Later, in an interview with Greenlandic television, she came close to breaking down as the emotion of Trump's ludicrous threats to her homeland engulfed her. When the president wasn't saber-rattling in Greenland's direction, he was indicating that he was ready to ride to the rescue of protesters in Iran, with plans to launch airstrikes targeting the country's brutal regime. Help is on the way, he promised on social media.
It's a very dangerous place right now. And again, I tell the Iranian leaders, you better not start shooting because we'll start shooting too.
But that turns out to have been bluster. On Wednesday, he blinked.
We've been told that the killing in Iran is stopping. It's stopping. And there's no plan for executions or executions. So I've been told that on good authority. We'll find out about it.
In fact, what he had been told on good authority by his allies Qatar and Oman was that any US military intervention would be catastrophic for the region. While the White House says military options are still on the table, so far the only help Iranian protesters have seen has come in the form of some rather imprecise US sanctions announced yesterday. 1 week, the president is telling everyone he won't be constrained by international law. He'll do whatever he wants, guided by his own personal morality. The next week he's bottling it over Iran. How to make sense of it all, especially given the rhetoric of Trump's very own Rasputin. Deputy White House Chief of Staff Stephen Miller on CNN last week explaining why the US is now running Venezuela.
We live in a world, in the real world, that is governed by strength, that is governed by force, that is governed by power. These are the iron laws of the world that have existed since the beginning of time. By definition, we are in charge.
Except that turns out not to be exactly true, certainly as far as Venezuela is concerned. Last Friday afternoon, the president summoned American oil executives to the White House for an event at which he planned to divvy up the spoils of his takeover of the country. It did not go according to plan.
We have a very long history in Venezuela. In fact, we first got into Venezuela back in 1940s.
Darren Woods, the CEO of ExxonMobil, saying the company has no plans to get back into Venezuela anytime soon.
We've had our assets seized there twice. If we look at the legal and commercial constructs and frameworks in place today in Venezuela, today it's uninvestable.
Uninvestable, you say? That is very much not the message the president wanted to hear about his new plaything.
No, I didn't like Exxon's response. We have somebody that wanted, I'd probably be inclined to keep Exxon out. I didn't like their response. They're playing too cute.
They don't want to go back in, but he's going to keep them out. There was another big example of someone standing up to him this week. Jerome Powell, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, America's independent central bank equivalent to the Bank of England, was suddenly served with subpoenas informing him that he is being investigated by a zealous pro-Trump prosecutor over the cost of some renovations at the Fed's headquarters. Except, of course, that is not really what it's all about, as the Fed chair made clear in an unprecedented video message to the nation.
This is about whether the Fed will be able to continue to set interest rates based on evidence and economic conditions, or whether instead monetary policy will be directed by political pressure or intimidation.
Trump's latest effort to lay waste to the bank's independence was roundly rejected by Republicans on Capitol Hill, although the president remains poised to put a sycophant in there to replace Mr. Powell when his term as Fed chair ends in May. As you know, the president has already eviscerated the traditional independence of the Department of Justice, and this week 6 prosecutors in Minneapolis resigned after they were ordered by Attorney General Pam Bondi to begin a criminal probe into last week's killing of Renee Good, the 37-year-old motorist gunned down by that trigger-happy ICE agent. Ms. Bondi ordered no investigation of the killer, but instead demanded a probe of Ms. Good's widow in an effort to stand up the president's specious claims that a vast underground left-wing conspiracy is undermining his government. On the streets of Minneapolis this week, more absolutely brazen conduct by Trump's masked thugs as they ripped an American citizen born in Bangladesh out of her car. She was on her way to a doctor's appointment. Her lawyer is accusing ICE of issuing contradictory instructions that put her in the same kind of jeopardy that led to Renee Good's killing a week ago.
I am disabled! I have a brain injury!
As she was carried away by ICE, her efforts to alert them to the reasons for her journey were to no avail. And there were numerous other ICE outrages this week, including another non-fatal shooting in Minneapolis. None of this is a surprise. The White House says Renee Good's killing last week was justified, despite bucket loads of evidence to the contrary. And Deputy White House Chief of Staff Stephen Miller made it clear on Fox News this week that Trump's thugs now have blanket authority to kill as many people as they want.
To all ICE officers, you have federal immunity in the conduct of your duties. And anybody who lays a hand on you or tries to stop you or tries to obstruct you is committing a felony. You have immunity to perform your duties, and no one, no city official, no state official, no illegal alien, no leftist agitator or domestic insurrectionist can prevent you from fulfilling your legal obligations and duties.
And as Trump's police state expands, the president is now threatening again to invoke the 1807 Insurrection Act and flood Minneapolis at least with troops and Marines to support and facilitate ICE operations. As we've noted before, that's the kind of thing you might do all over America later this year if you wanted to disrupt this November's midterm elections. And the president, for the second week running, said he doesn't think America needs to hold those elections. He told Reuters this week that his administration had accomplished so much that, when you think of it, we shouldn't even have an election. From the White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, this ludicrous explanation.
The president was simply joking. He was saying, we're doing such a great job, we're doing everything the American people thought, maybe we should just keep rolling. But he was speaking facetiously.
Sure he was, because it's an absolute absolute thigh slapper. Now, have you heard the one about the American president who did not win the Nobel Peace Prize, but got his hands on it anyway?
Did you offer to President Trump your Nobel Peace Prize?
I presented the President of the United States the medal of the Nobel Peace Prize.
The sad, pathetic moment that Maria Corina Machado, the Nobel Prize-winning Venezuelan opposition leader, confirmed that she had handed her gong over to Donald Trump yesterday. The man who claims to be running Venezuela has still not even publicly demanded that she should be allowed to return to her homeland. And yesterday, in a desperate and possibly fruitless effort to secure his backing, she bent the knee. The White House later issued still pictures, the president holding the framed medal, grinning like the cat who stole the cream. His spokeswoman claiming the medal's handover was a sign of mutual respect, rather than the mafia-style extortion that, in fact, it represents. It's an odd time of year, this, Tom. Old Moore's Almanac says with each passing day, it's supposed to be getting lighter. Except here in America, we seem to be plunging into ever more depressing darkness.
From Washington, D.C., Simon Marks, American Week.